After the success of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, Criterion are back with a newly announced entry in the Need for Speed series.
We'll be talking to the game's producers and taking an in-depth look at this year's most anticipated racer.
It's time to put the pedal to the metal for the Pwnd Need for Speed Most Wanted special.
Coming up on this special episode of Pwnd,
Matt headed to E3 for the announce of the game to speak to creative director Craig Sullivan about Need for Speed Most Wanted's single player.
I also tracked down executive producer Matt Webster and got all the details about multiplayer.
Meanwhile, back in Blighty, I found out about the latest generation of Autolog, Autolog 2, and how it works in Need for Speed Most Wanted.
And we take a look back at Criterion Games' racing heritage leading up to this latest instalment in the Need for Speed franchise.
Just a few short weeks ago, during the EA press conference at this year's E3 Expo, EA and Criterion announced the new Need for Speed game, surprising many who expected Hot Pursuit 2, with the revelation that Criterion Games were in fact reimagining Most Wanted.
I flew out to LA for the announcement and wasted no time in tracking down the game's creative director Craig Sullivan to find out all about the single player of this latest Need for Speed game.
What makes this a Criterion version of Most Wanted?
It has the amazing Criterion DNA in the driving and the way that we allow the player to drive like they imagined they could drive that yellow Porsche, rather than how they probably could do, which is if I gave you the keys to a yellow Porsche and asked you to drive through downtown LA traffic, you probably wouldn't do as good a job as you can in our game.
As well as the Most Wanted list mechanic, is there an actual story in the game as well?
But we think the story should be about me as a player and how I am most wanted against these other drivers in the world, and ultimately against my friends on the most wanted list.
In terms of the tone, we've seen it similar to XP systems we might have seen in shooters.
Ultimately, yes. You earn them from everything you do. So playing through the single player game earns you speed points, take you up the most wanted list. Playing through multiplayer earns you speed points, takes you through the most wanted list, but also unlocks mods and upgrades for your car, and ultimately unlocks new cars. So everything you do in the game, regardless of where it is, earns you speed points, which allows you to have a deeper, better experience.
Can you tell us anything about the cars? What types of cars you're going to be driving?
Probably the widest variety of cars that you've seen in a Need for Speed game yet. We have the big Ford Raptor truck, right down to smaller cars like, we have a lot of Porsches in the game. We actually have an Aerial Atom in the game as well. It's a tiny, tiny car, so when you put into the same game, Aerial Atom versus Raptor, you're going to have a lot of fun that you haven't had, an experience that you haven't had in a Need for Speed game.
Also, how are you going to address the issue that sometimes racing in an open world can lead to distractions from the race?
A lot of people say Burnout Paradise is about distraction. We had people play that game for like 500, 600, 700 hours. So distraction is kind of part of what we'd like to do. I'm driving down the road, I'm driving towards an event, or I'm in a cop chase and I see a security gate that I haven't collected or a jump I haven't done, and kind of go and collect that. But when you're in a race where we've moved on from Burnout Paradise didn't have checkpoints. We have checkpoints in to help guide you through the world, so we have a much nicer, cleaner, easier to play experience, and that's what we're seeing at the show today. Behind closed doors, for our select kind of group that we're showing the game to, inside or outside of a chase, if you drive up to a car that kind of looks out of the ordinary compared to the other traffic cars in the world, you can switch to it for the first time in Need for Speed history and then drive off in that.
Later on, more from LA as we bring you all the info on the multiplayer element of Need for Speed Most Wanted.
Right now, we thought we'd take a trip along the memory pit lane and look at the history of Criterion's racing games that led up to this latest Need for Speed title, with Criterion veteran Hamish Young.
Criterion first stepped into the car racing genre with 2001's Burnout. The game differentiated itself from other racers of the time with its mechanic of earning boosts through near misses and dangerous driving. It was quickly followed by Burnout 2 Point of Impact, which introduced crash mode to the series, Burnout 3 Takedown, which marked the debut of online play, and Burnout Revenge, culminating with Burnout Paradise, which saw Criterion introducing open world gameplay to the series before the team moved on to the Need for Speed franchise. Criterion veteran Hamish Young picks up the story.
We're at Criterion, we're massive fans of Need for Speed. We've been playing Need for Speed since the original 3DO version, and when we got the opportunity to do a Need for Speed game, we jumped at the chance. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit was set in a fictional county, Seacrest County, where basically the cops are everywhere and they're trying to take down the racers. So the whole structure of the game, the setting, is based around the concept of who's better, racers or cops. But because this was our first Need for Speed has always had licensed cars, and we jumped to the opportunity to really be able to put some amazing car brands in the game. Everything from Porsches to Lamborghinis, up to the Bugatti Veyron, at the time the fastest production car in the world. So we really wanted to kind of pay that off in terms of people driving fast, but also driving these beautiful exotic cars, which really harks back to the original 3DO Need for Speed. We added weapons, things like spike strips and EMPs and turbos to the cars, and on the cop side, we really wanted to make sure that you felt like you had equipment that you could kind of take down the racers with. The Hot Pursuit mode, which was the cops versus racers, was by far the most popular mode. In Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, we introduced a system called Autolog, and it really talks to the heart of what Criterion's about, which is about being connected with friends and having fun with friends. It's been fantastically successful. In fact, in the office, some of our IT guys actually ended up playing a particular race 1,000 times to try and beat one of our designers. And it really kind of shows that when people get engaged with what their friends are doing, it's a really powerful way to play the game. So Need for Speed Most Wanted is really the culmination of essentially a decade of making driving games. You know, we've got a big open world, you know, you can get online with your friends and hang about and kind of do social challenges, but you can also obviously have, you know, great racing. We're taking Autolog, we're making it deeper. You've got a whole bunch of things to compete over and cooperate with your friends to try and achieve rewards to unlock. We're going deep with our online progression. We're going deep with how, you know, you play events throughout the world and the variety. And the variety of cars, once again, is actually the most we've ever had. So we've really taken all the learning of the last 10, 12 years and really putting it into this game. So I'm really excited about getting it into players' hands and seeing what they think.
So if that's whet your appetite for Criterion's latest effort, it's back to Los Angeles now, where fresh from the announce of the game at the E3 Expo, Matt caught up with Need for Speed Most Wanted's executive producer, Matt Webster.
We talked multiplayer, and I started off by asking him, what's new?
With this one, we really wanted to do something different. I think that the game itself is like, we've sort of taken everything we know about driving games and just smashed them all into one experience. So in this one, the multiplayer is, we just wanted to make a seamless experience where we constantly serve up different types, different variety of gameplay. So what we're showing here, we've got races, we've got team races, which are pretty familiar for people that are used to driving games, although our race is quite different from anybody else's races, because it's a fight for the start line first, then a fight for the finish, and then when you're done, you can go and fight the people who haven't finished. We're also showing speed tests for the first time. So these are like 90-second short, 90-second chunks of gameplay, very intense competition for something.
What have you learned from Burnout Paradise in terms of good and bad that you put into Need for Speed Most Wanted?
The game taught us so much, from the game that we shipped to the game that it ended up being, with all of the work that we did, were very, very different, and we learned a lot along the way. And we're bringing all of that into Most Wanted. So the fan favourites from Burnout Paradise, something that we call challenges, this more social, cooperative type gameplay experience, they're coming to Need for Speed for the very first time. Social co-op challenges in cars are just going to be awesome. We had a very open world in Paradise, but we didn't really have any nav assistance. We've got nav assistance here, but we also respect the gamer, right? So we know that people can work this stuff out, and people love the discovery of finding things and understanding the city. So we want to respect that, but we also know that for multiplayer, for example, you need a little bit of structure. You need a system to suggest gameplay to you, and that's exactly what the playlist system did.
And how does the multiplayer work with single player? Does it integrate, or is it a separate mode?
No, it's separate, but it's you can blend from one to the other very simply. The scoring is the same, so no matter what you're doing in Need for Speed Most Wanted, you're earning speed points. With very, very deep, rich, rewarding ranking system, but we've got speed levels where you can unlock loads of stuff. They're all driven by speed points. And then when you net those speed points up, that's in the Most Wanted list. And getting to the top of the Most Wanted list is how you become most wanted amongst your friends.
And I guess that's what's important, is playing against your friends, isn't it? Not against other people in the world, but people you know.
Yeah, I don't know about you, my shooter rank is like 9 million or something. But I know if I'm beating Hamish, I'm feeling good about myself.
What's your favourite car when playing multiplayer?
Well, I'm a massive BMW fan, so I'd take we've got E92 M3 on here, and you kind of think, well, is that going to stack up against maybe the Porsche or the Aventador? But the great thing about the progression system inside multiplayer is the further I go on, I can unlock mods for the car, so I can upgrade the car. So I can do wheels, suspension, engine, nitrous, bodywork. So I can customize that car to suit the way I play. So if I love the M3, which I do, I can put slicks on it to make it more competitive against some of the racer cars. Or I can raise it up. I can make it a bit more lightweight, so it's up against perhaps more of the faster cars. I can make it really strong, so it can go and hit hard against some of the muscle cars. So for me, I'd stick with that bad boy. Plus, you know, if I hit you with my M3 and you're in a Veyron, you're going to feel it.
Now, whilst Mr. Cuttle here got to swan off to sunny Los Angeles, I made a trip a little bit closer to home. Well, Guildford, in fact, the location of Criterion Studio right here in the UK.
We've talked about the single and multiplayer modes of the game, so now it's time to look at something that's crucial to both these modes of Need for Speed Most Wanted: Autolog.
I caught up with creative director Craig Sullivan after he'd made it back from E3 about the latest generation of Autolog and how it lets you keep track of the competition. So Craig, you guys here at Criterion are the auteurs behind Autolog. There's probably a few people out there who don't actually know what it is. Do you think you could kind of sum it up in a few words for us?
With Need for Speed Most Wanted, we really wanted to push the boundaries of what people thought Autolog was actually capable of. So in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, it only compared times, which was fun, you know, and changed the way people play. But in Most Wanted, it goes a lot further and a lot deeper. So it compares event times. It also compares everything you do on every collectible in the game. It tells you what your friends have been doing in terms of the achievements. It tells you what car they've been driving. It tells you how far they've jumped on a particular jump. It tells you how many security gates, how many billboards they've collected. Everything that can be compared is compared. So if you can't beat my race times, maybe you can do a bigger jump than me in the hundreds of jumps that we have in the game. Maybe you can go faster down a particular road than I can. Where there's a competition to be had, Autolog 2 allows you to have it in a seamless and kind of very, very easy to use fashion.
So obviously you guys were the first ones to come up with the Autolog feature. What gave you the kind of inspiration and the impetus to make such a device?
Well, obviously we play a lot of games in the office, and we're quite competitive at Criterion. I don't know, maybe you get that impression from us. Everybody likes to win, right? If there's a leaderboard, we like to be at the top rather than at the bottom. So we were playing a lot of games. We play a lot of Tiger Woods golf, or actually pretty much anything that we played. And we realized that we were kind of making up competition in the office. We actually had a board that we set up, kind of like the fast lap times on Top Gear, you know that show, right? So we were artificially doing something that we thought should be done in the game. So we thought, rather than me shout across the office that I've just beaten someone's time by 2 seconds, how's about we put a system into the game that tells them automatically whether or not they're actually online right now, tells them that I've beaten their time.
So what do you think are some of the benefits of playing, against your friends instead of just that big pool of people that you meet online?
I want to play against people who are at my level. I know their name, I've spoken to them recently, and I see their little gamer tag picture in the game. It makes it more personal. So if we do ever get together in the pub, then we can kind of, I can say, I saw the fact that you tried to beat me 60, 100, 150 times, and kind of give you a bit of a ribbing about it. We believe Autolog should be all about doing that friends comparison first, and then leaving the rest of that stuff to the crazy professional hardcore guys who are going to play the game for 100 hours in a weekend and be the best in the world.
So we've had a look at the single and the multiplayer of the game in depth, and so how's Autolog 2 going to work across these two?
In the original version of Autolog, in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, it only compared your offline single player times. This time around, Autolog 2, bigger, badder, better, compares everything. So when you're playing with lots of your friends in a multiplayer game, Autolog 2 will track everything that you do, the awards that you've won, the upgrades that you've unlocked, the cars that you've unlocked, the upgrades that you've earned, and it will push those out to your friends as well. So when you're looking at that main map screen, the ticker down at the bottom of the map will show you everything that you've done, and underneath that it will show you everything that your friend's done in both single and multiplayer, so it's pretty cool.
That's it for the Pwnd Need for Speed Most Wanted special.
And if we've left you suitably excited about this latest addition to the Need for Speed series, you won't have to wait too long to get your hands on it as the game hits the stores on November the 2nd.
Between now and then, we'll be bringing you all the latest updates and developments on our regular Pwnd and EA update shows. And don't forget, you can subscribe by hitting the button on screen now.
Regular Pwnd is back next month. Until then, fasten your seatbelts as we leave you with the trailer for this year's most anticipated racer.
We are unrestricted by rules.
We are challenged by the unexpected.
Most of all, it's about beating your friends.